performance as well as attitude in class. And finally, there is the student analysis as well. That represents, as you can see, that is also why we require or we requested for a recording three different perspectives in which you manage to provide us as well. So you see that in that particular segment you provided to us, there's the on the very left perspective, the one that looks at the entire class. I believe that's the camera looking at the teacher. Then on the top right corner, that will be the POV looking at the students. And at the bottom right, that will be the POV on the content. So on these three different aspects, our AI analysis analyzes all three aspects as well. So what does it analyze specifically? So first of all, if we actually on the content end, we start with the captions. So if you look at it, the captions, the things that was mentioned by the teacher and the students, the main speaker was actually summarized and put into a speech to text converted and generated transcript. So yeah, you can see over here, there's a timeline, there's time for all the things that was mentioned. You can download this transcript, you can also translate it if necessary, right? At the same time, you also have the knowledge notes. This is where from the mentioned transcript, yeah, from the generated subtitles, you then actually extract certain knowledge notes. So the knowledge note, there are actually two ways for it to be generated. The first of which is actually where the AI will analyze based on the content that the teacher has previously input. It will actually extract the key notes or the key important points that the teacher has previously input into the system and match it whenever it has been mentioned inside the class so that it becomes a timestamp. So the reason why you don't see it appear in this particular tab is because the teacher hasn't actually input the important points that they were planning to mention in this class session. So it doesn't reflect. But in any case, the teachers can still modify this knowledge note. As you can see that there's a button over there to add knowledge note so that the teacher can manually input this, what we call, it's basically like a bookmark so that for your video recordings, you can bookmark it according to your importance point mentioned. So for example, if it's mathematics, you have addition, multiplication, you can slip in all those bookmarks so that the students, when they're reviewing, they can click on those bookmarks to skip to learn whatever they want to when they need to, right? So that's what's happening on the contents end. So at the same time, for the content, if you look to the left side where we have a look at the AI-powered analysis, if you look at the first item, right? Yeah. Could you, Kaylin, could you click on, yeah, to the very left? Yeah. So the title here is mentioned as learning content, but essentially what happens is that the AI also analyzes the content in the sense that it will actually analyze what are the most common terms that were used or mentioned during the class session. So that here you get to see that there's a generated AI word cloud, right? It's like a word cloud, uh, like a very quick, simple imagerial representation of a summary in terms of what was mentioned during the class session, right? Then you go down, you have your content summary, meaning what was mentioned during this class session, a summarized, or in other words, automatically generated meeting minutes for this class session will be provided. So you can see over here, the content summary, you have the main points, and you have some simple descriptions under each of those points. Kaylin, could you continue to scroll down a bit more as well? Yeah, we can see more of this. So you can see the more points you mention, it will provide you with more summaries. And if you elaborate within a specific point longer and longer, then this is also a case where you will actually have more description under each of those as well. So here, it's also important to notify as well, or to actually note as well, is that if the teacher plans to just manually add in the knowledge note on the right side, for their class session so that they have the bookmark for each of their recordings. They can actually refer to the learning content summary on the left side to use, for example, point number 7, you can actually include it into as a knowledge note so that it becomes a timestamp. So this is one of the ways you can make use of the system as well. Then you have your instructional presentation. This is where we come to the second perspective where we're actually analyzing the teacher. So analyzing the teacher, we're actually analyzing on a few aspects. As you can see over here, we are analyzing based on the speaking speed, or in other words, the speech speed. Then there's also the speech volume, because essentially you'll see over here is that the system will provide like a general recommendation in terms of how loud the teacher should be speaking, as well as how fast the teacher should be speaking. But obviously, these all serve as a point of reference because from regions to regions, for example, For example, if you're dealing with students from South Africa or Africa in general, they tend to speak a bit slower and they tend to understand better when it is the language of English is spoken slowly. So this is all a regional, it's supposed to serve as a reference, but in any case, this is just us providing objective-based analysis so that the teacher has something to reference to, right? So if the teacher is speaking way too fast, at least they can see through this particular system over here, right? Then there's also the volume. Then we continue to go down. So you see over here that they are recommending around 77 decibel units. So if you go just a bit up, yeah. So you see over here that in terms of volume, we actually recommend, the average lecturing value is around 52.2 decibel units, right? The maximum is 77. Then there is a bit of a simple, I would say, like a simple analysis as well as a simple description given to every class session. So this is applied for the volume. Next will be verbal communication. So for verbal communication, which is the next segment, if essentially what happens is that the system will give like a very general as well as again like a reference in terms of some of its suggestions for the teachers to have reference to, right? So the teachers can find out from this communication or this segment that, the system has determined that the language is clear, organized, right? There are some variations, dialects, because obviously in Malaysia, right, we speak, sometimes we jumble a bit of our dialect, jumble a bit about our languages, right? So you will actually provide some of the description or some of the suggestions over here as well, right? So again, as you can see at the very bottom, this is based on a large language model. It is purely for reference. And to be more specific, it's a reference for the teachers to maybe review their performance, or maybe the head of department, or maybe even the school management, right? This is the purpose of in which the AI analysis is supposed to fulfill. Okay, moving on, we move to the next segment, which is instructional behavior. So this time around, we're actually analyzing again the teacher, but based on their behaviors in class. So you can see over here that throughout the entire class session, how much time has the teacher spent doing what, right? So in here, we can see that 37 minutes was spent doing lecturing, right? Not much was spent doing writing, mostly because as I can see over here, this classroom doesn't even have a whiteboard. So you can see that there won't be much of any writing. Then 6.7 minutes was spent doing Q&A. Maybe the teacher was asking students some questions, right? There's student discussion and student presentation. So this also correlates back to I believe one of the questions that you actually mentioned with your email query earlier with regards to whether our system can support student-centric learning, right? Project-based learning, group-based learning, right? Or where the students are doing most of the learning themselves. Then in that case, yes, it can, because as you can see over here, we have supported class sessions where maybe it's a tutorial class session, right? The teacher spends maybe the first 5 to 10 minutes explaining the topic, explaining the content. Then the rest of the class was spent with where the students are actually discussing in groups. Then in that case, this is also supported. To us, or rather specifically to the system or the AI system in this particular case, it is just another format of teaching and learning. So here you see that it's very teacher-centered. It's very heavy towards the lecturing and not much on the discussion and the presentation end, right? So you can see if you go down a bit more, you'll see that, how many percent of the class session was spent doing this and that, right? Let's keep going down to the events of instruction. Yeah. So in the events of instruction, this is also a segment where they will actually do a bit of summary in terms of, okay, in this particular class, right, how much of it was actually spent presenting new content, how much of it was spent doing recap for the previous class, then how about Q&A, quizzes, right, so on and so forth. This is essentially like a small breakdown in terms of how the teacher's mode of teaching actually correlates, right? So maybe in the future, this is also a good chance for us to actually expand, because right now we are still in the smart classroom stage, but further down the line, our solution earlier last month has evolved into an AI agent, right? We are using a bunch of AI functions. So that particular segment, we haven't showed it to you yet, but maybe in the future we can have another session where we can show you some of the AI agents that we are using, how we are using DeepSeek to enhance the entire teaching and learning process, right? All that stuff, because it actually correlates to the events of instruction over here. Part of it actually correlates as well, because with our AI agent, we have a teaching assistant that actually provides like a point of reference. We call it a lesson plan, essentially the teachers can give specific instructions and have these actually recommend them or give them a reference in terms of how they can deliver their class session. And that particular reference and that structure itself can be used to actually correlate and match back to the events of instruction over here. So one part of it is like a reference to prepare for a class session. And coming to the events of instruction over here is where AI analyzes and actually tells you, okay, based on our analysis, were you actually following a full lesson plan? And if you were doing so, does that work well, or does that actually reflect very well with the students? Because with the students, we then actually try to understand them in terms of how well they are paying attention to the class, or how often they're paying attention to the class. That's kind of like one of our indicators, because at the end of the day, with our solution, it's really hard to objectively say whether a class session was really effective or not, except for a particular more structured, I would say, or a more solid method is where through the students' attention rate in class. Because if the students are paying attention, chances are they are learning something. And that would be one of the more, I would say, reliable indications in which whether the class session was of high performance, high quality, or whatnot, right? So moving down, we want to look at the instructional model analysis as well. This is where we actually compare in terms of the teacher behavior proportion, the student behavior. But what this actually results in, if we go down a bit more, the main point of this is the RTCH analysis, because this is the end result that we actually want from it, from what was generated above. The system will actually, again, as a point of reference, will actually categorize the teacher in terms of his teaching method or his teaching style. Or is he the type to be more of a hybrid, or a lecture type, or a dialogue type? Dialogue type meaning the ones that interact with the students a lot, right? Talk with them a lot. Or the practice type, the ones that give a lot of assignments, so on and so forth, right? So in any case, this is a breakdown of the type of teachers, because you can compare from one class session to the next based on the RTCH analysis, what kind of teacher reflects very well with the students, or does very well in terms of gathering the students' attention. So, for example, in Malaysia, maybe it might be a mixture between a dialogue and a hybrid type, but maybe in other parts of the world, they might prefer a lecture type, and in other parts of the world, maybe in Western countries, they might prefer more of the practice and dialogue type. So it all depends on the regional, culture, the learning culture, the scenario in general. But essentially, this is again just purely for reference. It's kind of like where we provide a set of analysis that the schools can use to do secondary level of analysis to determine whether certain modifications of teacher training should be conducted or not, right? Then at the very end, if you scroll to the very bottom, this is where we have a teaching violation monitoring. Essentially, if the teacher is late to class, if they left early, or if they are, looking at their phones throughout a lot of, frequently looking at their phones throughout the entire class, these are violations that the system will detect and will actually indicate. So as you can see over here, it has mentioned that in leave early, the teacher is suspected. So again, it's actually a very important point to note is that our system provides, our system will not give very concrete uh, answers or statistics in general, because at the end of the day, sometimes the teachers might have specific reasons. It's up to the school management to find out and to actually rectify this later on. Because let's say if the teacher is always leaving early, then in that case, this might be something to be rectified. But maybe the teacher left earlier because they have another session at another class and it's very far away, right? Maybe it's in another building. He needs time to go over there. Then maybe this can be accepted. So this is all very subjective based, and it's up for the school to make decisions. We are the ones that just provide the very, I would say, the very basic, or in other words, the very surface level statistics and analysis, so that there's not much ways to go around it, and it's up to the school to do the secondary level or the tertiary level of analysis later on, right? So moving on, we come to the student behavior. That will be the last perspective, also the last key component that is actually checking on, or our AI analysis actually detects on. So first of all, there's the attendance, which is automated attendance, and it's based on a head counting system. So as you can see over here, 36 is present, but enrolled is left as empty, because essentially with the full solution, you're supposed to also you're supposed to do some setup, and it will follow a specific timetable so that the system know, okay, from what time to what time this class will have a session. So we'll do an automated recording. And in this session, we are expecting 40 students, so that we can say over here, okay, out of 40 students, only 36 students were actually present. So this is all actually to do a head counting system, right? Then we have our session engagement. So session engagement over here is basically where we actually have a few items. You can see that there's the heads up rate, there's the reading and writing rate, and there's the head-on desk rate. So this is something that we actually recently did an upgrade on, because previously we only had one indication, which is the student heads up rate, meaning when the students' faces are up and they are looking at the teacher, that counts as heads up rate. But that is not really a full or a very clear indication of the class session in terms of attention rate as well. Because why? Sometimes the class session is more on students doing work, or maybe the students are actually copying down the teacher's note, so on and so forth. As the teacher are explaining, they're writing their own notes, right? So in that case, the students are paying attention, their heads are not up. So to actually counter this kind of scenarios, we actually did a minor upgrade so that you see that there are some variances. Last time when we show you the AI analysis, there was only one, the graph only had one line, right? So this time around there's two, one indicating heads up, another one indicating the reading and writing. And on the other hand, if it's head on desk, there's a very high chance that that's not paying attention, because basically the students are either lying on the desk, or maybe they are looking at the phones lying on the desk, right? So that's the head on desk rate, right? Let's keep going down. So on the student behavior section, this is where we are actually analyzing. So basically, we're not analyzing the entirety of the students, but as many students as the camera can capture, or rather can capture and the AI can detect. That's where it will actually provide a percentage based on, okay, how out of the entire class with all of these students, how many percent of the students were doing listening throughout the entire class, right? How many part of it was doing reading and writing, so on and so forth. And how these percentages are generated, scroll down a bit more. Yeah, so it's actually based on a posture annotation. So I believe this was actually mentioned with the previous email, I think. But basically, there was supposed, or in this particular recording, it's supposed to actually put like a box over the student's face, indicate, okay, which student that the system detected was doing the heads-on, they are listening, or which student was detected not looking at the screen, instead looking at maybe their phone, so on and so forth. That's supposed to be part of our system, right? So I believe that was actually one of the questions raised previously, but it's supposed to be a function that comes along with our AI analysis as well. So finally, let's look at the analysis report on the very top right corner. Yeah. So on the with the analysis report, it's essentially a summary or like a recap of all the information that was gathered by the AI analysis system for this particular class session. So that if you scroll down, you see that there's the content, there's also the knowledge notes, right? Yeah, keep going, keep going. Yeah, there's the instructional presentation, which was the teacher analysis. There's the instructional behavior for the teacher, right? Then finally, there's also the student behavior analysis. So this is basically like a recap, or in other words, like a summary of the full report, or all the analysis data that was gathered, generated into a form of a report. So if you scroll to the very top, yeah. So it's also notable over here that this is also available for exporting, so that if reporting is required to be done, right, this can also be done. So it's also important to note that with our lecture capture management system, aside from the AI analysis, which is the automated analysis, the system itself also supports manual supervision of classes. Because as you understand currently, if we need to here in Malaysia at least, if we need to understand the class session quality and performance, we need to assign teachers to go from one class to the next, right? That would be the most common way they do it, especially in the K to 12 perspectives or scenarios. But here we can actually use our recording management system so that we can assign tasks to our review team, so that they will use these tasks as their indication, as well as their, I would say, like something like a question list to go through the recording and to grade their class sessions, right? So that's basically it. So let's go through the questions now. I see that we have some questions over here, yeah. So may I see that Miss Mei Ling, Professor Mei Ling has actually mentioned, may I know if this AI behavior work on group activities where collaborating and learning through doing or working on a project? Okay, so for this, we actually need to understand specifically what kind of scenarios that we are looking at. I'll give some examples, right? For example, in a common or standard university class session where the students are sitting in groups, right? They are discussing through maybe their own smart boards or they are doing their own group work. And at the very end of the class session, they are required to come to the very front to do presentation, right? So it's a very student-centered mode of teaching and learning. Yes, we can support that. The AI analysis is still able to support it. The data, so obviously the generated data will be a bit varied because this around just like what we saw earlier, the student heads up rate will be very low because they are not looking at the teacher most of the time. Instead, they are just looking at their students, their partners in their groups. They are doing a lot of discussion. They are doing a lot of writing, right? So with that, normally we categorize this mode of teaching as project-based learning or group-based learning. So with our smart classroom solution that we previously presented, we have a smart classroom solution setup, a smart classroom setup itself, in which we refer to as the collaborative smart classroom that can support exactly this kind of tutorial classes. And at the same time, the AI analysis based on this kind of setup is also able to support. Obviously, the results that are generated or the analysis that is generated will vary a bit, but at the end of the day, this is understandable because at the end of the day, the teachers and the school is the one that will be reviewing and they will understand, oh, this was a tutorial class. That's why the students are generating this kind of results, right? So at the same time, let's go down. I see that there are some other questions. We are looking for, oh yeah, before we get into the second part, I was mentioning about examples of teaching scenarios, right? So in another case where the class session is not taught in that standard tutorial setting, but rather, for example, um, let's say it's a music class, or maybe it's a practical class for maybe medical sessions, right? So let's say, for example, the teacher spends the first 5 to 15 minutes demonstrating how to conduct or to operate on a patient, right? To actually maybe to replace a lung or to actually how to save a collapsed lung, this kind of emergency surgery. So it's a practical class session, and the students are then required to go to the front to do this. So in that case, in this particular scenario, obviously our system can support this kind of teaching scenario, but only partially. Why do I mention this as partially? Is because first of all, it supports in the sense that during the demonstration session, the students are still doing the reading, they are writing, they are referring, they are looking at the teachers, they are making a lot of notes. So at the end of the day, the AI can still support this part of the session. But going to the next part where the students are required to go and do one by one, obviously other students might still be looking at the student in front doing the demonstration or doing the testing. So to a certain extent, we are still supporting this particular scenario. But if you are but if your requirement is to actually see whether our system or our AI analysis is capable of grading the students' practical work based on their actions, then as of now, our system cannot support that because it's very industry specific. To give you an explanation for that, because in Singapore, we also have another project where their requirements was to work with uh, police, right? Police academy. So, for example, given a hostage situation, what are the steps that the police should be able to take in order to ensure the highest survivability of the hostages? So, to achieve this, what are the steps, and whether our system is able to detect all of these steps and to grade them based on how well they execute each step. So, this part of it is very industry specific. So that is currently not supported. But it is something that we can look into in the future because we have the AI analysis. But as of now, right, in its readily available state, it is mainly designed to support the trend. I wouldn't say traditional, but the standard way of teaching methods, which is the teacher-centric, the student-centric, project-based learning, group-based learning, like we have explained previously. Yeah. So moving to the other parts of your question, we are looking for student engagement and participation, team dynamics and collaboration patterns, individual and group performance trends. So hopefully that answers your question. Basically, essentially, it depends on what kind of specific scenario. So if you have a very specific scenario that you can actually tell us, then we can say which part of the class session that it supports, which part of it that it might not be able to support. Because as you can see, there are variances to teaching scenarios, and based on the few examples that I have provided previously, you'll see that okay, certain parts of the class session that the system will still be able to detect and generate all the AI analysis. Then the other parts, then maybe not. Yep. So hopefully that answers your question. With the other question, does the system adapt to non-traditional classroom setup? Yes. So if you are talking about round tables in general, yes, because if you refer back to our smart classroom solution setup previously, with the collaborative classroom specifically, it does maybe Kelly, maybe you can you're sharing your screen anyways, right? Maybe you can bring up the PowerPoint, the standard solution PowerPoint, so we can just quickly mention about it so everyone has an idea. Because with smart classroom setups in general, there are a few, we understand that there's a lot of different ways that we can set up our smart classroom, from a standard teaching, standard setup, to maybe a round table setup, to maybe even meeting rooms kind of setup. So if you look at the collaborative classroom image, yeah, you can see over here that this is a floor layout, right? So this is based on a round table that we supported. Let's go to the previous slide, the slide before this. Yeah, so if you look at this picture over here, so this is actually our collaborative classroom. It is designed to support and to facilitate project-based learning and group-based learning in general. And you can see over here that students are all sitting in groups, and we have a recording classroom. I mean, we have the functions of the lecture capture management system to record the class session, and at the same time, the AI analysis to analyze this sort of class session as well. So I would say the short answer to whether our system or our solution in general, right? Because if you're talking about this kind of teaching and learning scenarios, then our solution in general, the multi-board interactive system can fully support this, and the AI analysis can also support it. But if you're talking about very industry specific, very niche kind of teaching that is very, specific to a specific, very specific to a particular course or a particular subject, then we'll have to look at it on a case by case basis, and we'll be able to advise you. That's also why we actually bring in our technical team for this session, because if you have very specific questions, very specific scenarios that you want us to clarify whether our system can support or not, then that's a very good case for us to actually go through it as well. No, we don't. We don't actually have to install a camera for each of the table. So as you probably already found out earlier with our AI analysis of your provided recording, the AI analysis actually provides analysis and provides reports based on the entire classroom performance as a whole, rather than individual students. That is also applied in a roundtable case, because if we put too many cameras across every single table, then there's obviously the generated analysis will be much more accurate because it's based on every student. But at the same time, at the end of the day, it will be very hectic because there's too many perspectives to work with. So essentially, what we do is that we provide a very general analysis report based on the entire class session as a whole. That's why when we say student performance, we are not looking at student A, student B, or student C, but rather we're looking at the entire student base as a whole, providing statistics like percentages, right? How many percentage of the class is paying attention, how many of them are not. So it's actually more based on the percentage and general statements rather than a very specific base. So because of that, we can also really reduce the required what do you call this, required investment required the investment required from the school's end, because you won't have to invest in so many cameras, you don't have to invest in the hardware that can support that many cameras, so on and so forth. So as a result, in a standard classroom setup, the standard POQ, we recommend two cameras, one for the teachers, one for the student, and finally the content is basically a screen recording of whatever is shown through the teacher main board. So again, like I mentioned earlier, so the system doesn't really recognize collaboration or hands-on engagement. So if you're talking about practical session, like I mentioned earlier, if it's a hands-on practical session, where the students are required to come in front and perform, let's say, perform a particular surgery on an operation on a patient, the system is not able to detect that. The system might be able to detect the student as being doing let's say it's basically not heads up, maybe it's a heads down rate. So that's the statistics that we will provide. That's why it's very general. It won't be able to support a very specific scenario like hands-on engagement, right? Then if you are talking about recognizing collaboration in general, then the system is able to recognize it in the sense that with what we showcased earlier, right? If you notice what we showed earlier is that if the students are doing group work or group collaboration, the system will actually record, okay, how much time was spent doing group work or group collaboration, right? For example, if the teacher spent the first 40 minutes lecturing the class and the last 10 to 20 minutes are all done with group work and collaboration, then the system will actually recognize it and actually detect that. And how it detects is basically through the actions of students. If they are all talking to each other and the teachers are not really involved, or the teachers are just walking around talking from group to group, then the system will detect that as collaboration. Hopefully that answers your question as well.
Hello, Mei Ling here. Does this means right is just generate the
Yes, is there any
where
other questions from the floor?
can you hear me? Mei Ling here.
I see that Professor Mei Ling has actually unmuted herself. I see that she might be speaking up because her mic is having fluctuations over there, but there's no audio feedback on our end. We can't seem to hear anything. And as it currently
Can
stands,
you
we
hear
might
me
have
now?
to consider switching to a second session if required so, because as it currently shows, we have roughly 2 minutes left for this session.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. Maybe we can switch to another meeting first because the session is gonna end now. I've sent the meeting link in the chat box.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, maybe we can switch over to the next meeting link so that we can continue our session over there as well.
Okay.
Recording stopped.
Means that all the data analysis that generated, right, is it won't like based on the students. It's like based on a very general information only.
Yeah. So essentially the generated data and
Because
statistics is
my superior, he has sent me a list what he is
Mhm,
expecting to have in the AI behavior generation.
mhm,
He expecting like if let's say we want it to be like implement in those collaborations classrooms, right? More on the like the students are doing some discussions, presentations, right?
mhm,
Were
mhm.
the AI behavior able to like compare between the groups? Something's like group A, their performance is better than group B, something like that. The
Oh, okay.
collaborations quality and also like within the groups, right? Maybe there's one students that very active in participations, like while others is just like keep quiet, sitting there, do nothing. This kind of analysis will the AI behavior able to generate for us?
The quick answer is that currently no, because
No
the
lah.
AI
Okay.
analysis actually analyzes the entire class session as a whole. So it actually
Okay.
also gives analysis, or it actually provides the reports, or quote unquote the comments based on the entire class as a whole. So if you are talking about the performance between groups or within a group, right, that's basically more towards grading already. So as of now, our system cannot support that because it requires very precise
Specifics. Yeah, correct,
detection,
correct.
precise detection as well as analysis. So it's also very subjective as well, because if you want to say one group is better than the other, it's very subjective. To put it into same example or a scenario, right? Maybe one group of students, they got up to the stage, they presented a topic that is really much more interesting. So at the end of the day, even though they presented not as well, they got a lot of they got a lot of responses from the other groups of students. They got a lot of, they were cheering him on. Then in a case, or in a sense, from enthusiasm, as well as from I wouldn't say passion, but from a specific indication, they did very well. But in other cases, right, let's say another group went up, they were presenting about just, let's say, a topic that is very mundane, is very simple, but they presented it very deep, very detailed. It was very informative. So at the end of the day, they didn't get much questions, or they didn't get much interaction from the rest of the students, because it was very straightforward, it was very mundane, even though it was very detailed. So the way, or the reason why I go in terms of go into the field of what we call grading, or rather, already putting into perspective, because the perspectives themselves are very subjective. That's why currently, what we mentioned earlier, the data and analysis that we actually generate from our AI analysis in general is very surface, it's very basic, and it's very objective. Meaning, it's
So
not wrong,
you
it's
still
up
need,
to interpretation.
still need
Yeah.
human interpretations. AI is
Yes,
just like
yes,
provide you the
yes,
data, but we
yes.
still need to go in and judge by ourselves whether the data is correct or not lah. Because when we get the analysis from you guys, right, we saw on it like some part may not be accurate lah, like because
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
there's one student actually she's not sleeping on the table, but she's just go to take some books from the back. But I think the AI say the student is sleeping on the table.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, the reason why this happens is that generally, when the AI are doing analysis on the students with our system or our solution in particular, right? What AI can do is they are detecting certain cues from the students that determine, or that allows them to place a label. So obviously, again, it's for reference, and in a lot of cases later on, once the solution is deployed, fine-tuning we still need to do certain fine-tuning work, so that it becomes more and more accurate until it becomes an acceptable level. That's why you also see that it's in general. So because when a student is going down, let's say, for example, the cue that the system detects in order to quote unquote label a student as having the head of desk is where, when their face is unable to be detected and the face is below, let's say, table level or waist
Yeah.
level. So when they're reaching down to get their exams, then in that case, to get their books or whatever, then that will be detected. So it's logical, but at the same time, it's wrong, right? You
Yeah.
get what I mean here?
Yeah.
So that's what we can do with AI as of now, because it's really subjective. There's so many things. So yes, you are right in the sense
But
that
it
human
will,
intervention is required.
yeah, it
Mhm.
will keep improving, right? What I can say is like it will
Yeah.
like
So
along the
it will
way it
improve.
will, yeah.
Yes, it will definitely improve, but we will have to say that as of now, especially with our current level of technology in general, we can't promise 100%. But
Okay,
it
yeah.
can be anywhere between 95 to maybe 98, maybe 98.8%,
Because
this kind of level.
refers to Kathleen's, right? It says that individual student behavior is just 80% accurate, group activity 75% accurate, and teacher behavior is about 80% accurate. So this percentage, right, will it improving along the
Yes,
year?
yes.
Yeah, yeah.
So it will, because for example, right now, what we are doing in general is that there's a few ways we can go about it. One is that once the solution is deployed, every now and then we'll do system upgrades or fine-tuning so that it can better detect certain actions or better determine or to have more cues input into the system so that it can detect more variations of specific actions, right? That way you can actually better determine. But that is all up to a technology perspective as well. Because right now, the solution in its readily available state is the percentage that you saw earlier, which is 80%, all that I mentioned, but it can improve. It just depends on how high you want it to go, because obviously, like I mentioned, 100% with the current level of technology is impossible. But to a certain extent, if you're talking about 90% or 95%, that's achievable. If we just need to do a lot of fine
The
tuning and sorry.
when you say the fine tuning is about the camera positions or the software side or the
Software
hardware
itself.
side?
Software itself.
Software itself.
Software, yeah. But fine-tuning is actually more towards language and content analysis in general. On actions, it's more towards maybe system updates. So for example, right, previously when we first showed to tailors on the student attention rate, it was actually just one graph indicating the student heads up rate, right? Then now you see that there's two more indicators. One indicating when the students heads are down, but they are looking at maybe their notes, they are making notes, or the other one is where their heads are actually on the desk. So we are
So
doing
it's the
frequent updates
software
so that
side
it
lah.
can actually, yeah, software side, mainly software side.
Mm.
We won't be
Okay.
we won't be touching the hardware anymore because the hardware, the requirements are much lesser. As long as it has a clear view of all the students within the class, it should suffice.
Okay, so that means that if let's say we want to implement these solutions, right? Any hardware will be okay lah. We won't need to use the Huawei brand or any
Oh,
specific brands, or yeah, will it
yeah,
like
you will have to use a specific BOQ because it's
okay,
not a Huawei brand. So if you are talking about the AV equipment and all of this, it's not Huawei. We are not using the Huawei cameras and everything like that, but we are using certain Huawei
standard
items
one?
like, yeah, like IVS 1-800. That one is compulsory. Then other than that, I think the ID Hub is optional. The servers from Huawei can also be used as you can also use existing servers given that they fit our requirements, so on and so forth. So in terms of other equipments like the AV equipment, we have a standard BOQ that we will have to provide. The reason for this is because the solution as a whole in its standard state as of now, right, based on what we have right now, the standard BOQ has been verified and tested across multiple scenarios and has run through a lot of different tests so that it's actually certified as it will work as intended, as long as it follows our standard BOQ and follows our guidelines. Because if you use others, there will be one of two different scenarios. First of which is that if you really want to do it, we will have to do a lot of system testing and configuration to see whether it's compatible or not. And if it's compatible, we'll have to configure it to see if it's compatible with our software or not. So that entire process, it will take a lot of time. And even after that, it might not be a surefire case of everything will work as intended because there's so many different scenarios that we can't all account for. But that process itself will have to also, it will be very lengthy. Then another case is where we don't do it, we just try to use whatever hardware we have. Then in that case, we won't be able to guarantee that it will fully work as intended. So that will be the current, I would say that would be the, how do I put this? It will be the limitations in terms of our solution that we are currently working with in terms of hardware.
Okay. Okay, noted on this.
Yes.
Yeah. So so that means the current solution, it won't have the tracking on the individual students. That means that camera, we won't know like this student is called the student
Oh,
is student who is this student name, and then the individual analysis, you won't have that things, right? Like those
yeah,
grading, comparison, everything, it won't have that, right?
yeah. As of
Okay,
now,
okay,
because it's all based on class as a whole, the
okay.
closest thing that resembles that particular requirement would be the posture annotation. So that when the system, what we showed earlier is that basically when the system detects through the recording, right? So if you review the posture annotation recording, what the system will do is that when it detects, let's say it detects a student looking at their phones, it will at least put a box over the student's face, and it will most likely be in red in color to actually indicate which student that it detected carrying out this action. So that would be the closest resemblance to what you mentioned
But
earlier
it
in
won't
terms of
tell,
requirement.
the system won't tell this student, let's say
What
this
name,
student's
right?
call, yeah, call name, and
No,
then
no. As of
so
now, no.
if let's say these recordings because the class is like every week one time so it will carry 14 weeks. It will like detect this student do the same actions in continuous few weeks. It won't tell, right?
No, this will be
Yeah,
up to the
okay.
school to determine, to actually
Okay.
review the
So it's
analysis.
like the student every time also sleep in the class, so it won't tell this kind of things, right? It will just
Yeah,
detect as a
so
whole,
it
right?
won't,
Okay.
yeah, because the system is unable to actually verify the identity of students. That's why it's actually
Oh, okay.
analyzing the school as the entire class as a whole. Because in terms of identity, technology still has its limitations. For example, one day the students come in, right? Let's say they have scanned their faces before. We
Okay.
have one AI-based verification, but it's for exams. Because for when
Uh-huh.
students enter the exams, they are using their own devices and the camera is looking directly at their face.
Yes,
That's why
correct. That's
it's
like
able to
the
more accurately. Yeah,
proctoring
it's
those, yeah.
yeah, correct. So that's why it's able to
Okay.
more accurately determine the identity of students and match it
Correct.
to a
Okay.
student account. But for recording classroom, one students can be absent the next, or the students can change their hair colors, change their
Okay.
hairstyles, change contact lens. So a lot of things that might affect the accuracy of it. So it's actually much harder to detect based on a very diverse school like Taylor's right now, where you have students coming in from all different nationalities, all different, all these
Okay.
kind of different things that come
Mm.
in, all these different factors that come into play makes it so that it's very hard to be very specific with individual analysis, which is why or to actually currently with a safer approach that we are taking is to actually, analyze classes as a
Yes.
whole.
Okay. Now noted on this classroom. So for just now you say the smart classroom, right? It detects the discussions part. How is work actually? Smart classroom,
Okay,
the
so essentially it's much more general. So in the sense that
general.
when the class session or the class is in a discussion session, meaning
Mm,
the teacher has assigned the entire class to do discussions on their
mm,
own, the system
mm,
will detect that as, oh, okay, now it's under discussion phase. So that's what it will
mm.
be able to detect.
So does it means that we need to tell that system because
No,
like
no, no, we
Taylor's
don't. It
we
will detect automatically. Yeah,
oh
yeah.
so
So it will
because
detect certain
normally
cues as well. Mhm.
okay, because normally like if let's say we integrate with Taylor's timetable systems, right? We have the class type like lecture class, practical class, tutorial class,
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
discussions, right? We
Mhm.
have this kind of class type. So yeah, you won't need this kind of information to let the system know, okay, actually this is lecture class. That's why what I mean is like you based on this
Ah,
information feed to your systems, right? Your system will be based on this class time, right, to adjust the detections type.
Mm,
Is that possible,
basic,
sir?
yeah,
That's
yeah.
yeah.
As of now, no as well, because right
Oh,
now we
okay.
only have one detection type. So it's able to
Oh,
detect a lot of different so it's we only have one detection, how do I call this? So the AI is able to recognize multiple. So it's based on the same detection criteria, but
okay.
it can still detect for different modes of teaching. Because, for example, even for a tutorial class, it might not be a case where once the teacher enters the class, everyone just starts doing their own group work, right? It might be a case where
Uh-huh.
the teacher first spends the first 10 to 5, 5 to 10 minutes
Mm,
to first explain the topic that they are going to be doing the group work on.
mm,
Then they start doing the tutorial, maybe the group work and the group discussion. So the
mm,
system is able to detect, oh, okay, first 5 or 10 minutes, the teacher did lecture. Then, or
mm.
the rest of the class, the entire class was doing group discussions. So this is what the system is able to determine instead.
Oh, okay. So it will
Yeah.
like based on the whole class situations to tell now is lecture, now is discussions lah.
Correct.
Okay.
Because we
So
understand that.
mm,
Mhm. Yeah.
so during the discussions that AI behavior only can tell us now is discussions, that's it. It doesn't have more information on this part, is it?
Yeah, basically it will tell, okay, it's currently doing the discussions. Then you can, the teachers will have to do cross-matching, meaning when the discussions are taking place, does the students have more engagement with the class, or does the student have less engagement with the class session as a whole? So we'll provide the engagement rate statistics, but to compare the engagement rates to the mode of class teaching, that's up to the school to do. You see what I mean? We are
Oh,
providing the
okay.
level 1 analysis and statistics and data. Then what comes after that? What do you derive from that analysis data? The level 2 and level 3, that will be human intervention.
Okay. Then my take a lot of times. How about others university or institute? They are okay with this. I
So
mean
it
the
really
human
depends.
interventions.
Yeah,
Okay.
because in China, right, where
Yeah.
our solution is
Mm,
currently
mm,
most used
mm,
in, they have
mm.
really strict regulations. Their teachers even have KPIs, and they actually
Okay.
have people who are, actual supervisors. This is actually part of their job scope. Certain head of department or certain job post roles within the universities actually have tasks, review the class sessions, to go through the analysis. So the AI analysis is actually just a way to quicken up their process, because otherwise
Oh,
their
okay.
only way of understanding how a class went is to go through the recordings one by one, right? So if they want to
Oh,
save time, they can look at the AI analysis. The AI analysis will tell them, oh, so at this current point of time, the teacher left the class early, or at this current point of time, the students are not paying attention. Maybe because the teacher is, very angry at that point of time, the student lost interest. So the AI is actually there to provide them with the data and statistics to make their jobs or their lives
more
easier.
easy only
So
lah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So at the end of the day, currently, even as of now, right,
Okay.
AIs in general is actually their technology with AI is actually sufficient for them to serve as tools, but not as replacements. Because at the end of the day, if
Okay.
you're talking about AI being more than capable enough to detect the performance of every groups up until the very last detail, and actually to actually give them, all that kind of thing. If AI is capable of doing up until that level, maybe we have already reached an era where teachers are not really required anymore, in the sense that, human interventions are removed entirely. Because currently, based on the level of technology that we have, with our understanding as solution providers or education technology solution providers, a lot of things are still very subjective. So it's a human touch is still required in a lot of aspects in teaching and learning. Because even as
Mm-hmm.
of now, there are certain aspects, because to give you another example, right? Because even as of now, AI technology is still improving, because with the most recent update that we have done with our system, with the AI agent and AI assistants, AI is already
Mm-hmm.
capable of actually not only grading assignments and exams for objective type questions, but even subjective type questions like short essay answers, right? Short essay or essay questions. Those kind of answers can also use AI to already, do grading. So their accuracy might not be 100%. There might be certain cases where the teachers understand that the students are, to put it aside lah, to put in some subjective cases, maybe the teacher understand that the students in certain cases, they have worked very hard this semester, but they are just not really good in this particular subject. So to motivate them, they just want to give them that extra few points to get them, to allow them to pass that point. These are the kind of human touch that we still require. So at the end of the day, with our understanding in general, AI is supposed to be a tool to make life easier for everyone, but not supposed to be a replacement for anyone.
Yeah, correct. And that's one I understand. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
So obviously, still, to actually add on to that is that AI is still improving. So in the future, even as of now, because previously it was just smart class solution, now we have AI agents, AI assistants. So in the future, you can expect more to come with our AI technology and our solutions in general. So it's actually one of the ways that we are also, indicating part of our, I would say, to put it into very blunt terms, competitive advantage, because our solutions is always growing. So it's also another thing to also consider as well. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, noted on this. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have no more
Any other
questions
questions?
at my side. Yeah.
All right, great. Thank you for your questions, first of all. It was actually very eye-opening because we have certain questions that we have not come across with other schools as well. Because we talk with a lot of different schools. Essentially
Yeah.
their requirements and requests essentially becomes, part of our planning in terms of what we can do best, what are the priorities to upgrade
Yeah.
our
Correct.
systems with, so
Correct.
and so on. Yeah, so
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
input we will also take note of this because we have colleagues to do meeting minutes as well. We're trying to understand, right? Your questions are also recorded.
Yeah,
So
because
further down the line,
another
mhm,
one is like because that's all is from my superior lah. He's like looking into gather all this kind of data lah, especially those like individuals data and then to integrate with other systems. Like we have
mhm,
because if we have this kind of data, right, we can like recommend the path because we are looking at the personalized learning ma. So
yeah,
if we have
yeah.
this kind of informations, we can like recommend some learning path to the students lah. But since
Okay.
this one it
Then
don't
in that
have, then
case,
it's a bit hard lah.
yeah, then in that
Yeah.
case, you might be interested into having another session with us because again, with the
Mm,
recent update, aside from AI agents in general,
mm.
we also have AI recommended content and another
Oh,
module
okay.
called Knowledge Graph. Knowledge Graph is the latest, one of the latest updates that we did to our system, where basically it's a new format of creating content or a new form of content, and it actually supports personalized learning path as well as personalized learning pace as well. So that is also something that you might be interested in. Maybe we can have another session to go through these individual items, right? Maybe in the
Yeah,
next
but that one
session.
is another LMS or how? Because we are using Moodle and we don't plan to change any LMS.
No problem, no problem. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
we can always plug out certain modules on our LMS and integrate it to your module. That's part of the beauty of our solution, you see.
Okay,
We are
okay.
pretty flexible. So let's say, for example, you are interested you have went through our solution demonstration with the LMS. You know that you have your own LMS. You don't want to change anything. That's completely fine because we
Mm.
have another case in South Africa with a university where they wanted this was actually a few years ago, but they wanted our U-test because we had the AI proctoring. Their Moodle didn't
Oh,
have that
okay.
function.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
we
yeah,
take
correct.
out the entire exam system and integrate it to Moodle. So that's one of the ways we did
Okay.
it. So the same can be applied for other modules that is on our LMS. Like for example, if you find the knowledge graph interesting, you want to have a go at it, then we can also plan for that as
Yeah.
well. So yeah,
Perhaps you can send us the informations. Yeah, because right now we have a lot of projects ongoing lah. So our Taylor's plan is like we want to move the physical exams to online. Yeah, this is the one. Maybe that you can
I'm
tell me more what of the
ah
U test. Okay. Another one is like we are doing personalized learning.
yeah.
Yeah, so that one is
So
like we are promoting those AI things lah to eat the
mhm.
lecturer live and then to personalize the students learning like recommendations, those things. So basically, yeah,
uh
we have a lot of initiative, just that yeah, we are now looking for
into
all the
solutions to
solutions.
support that
Yeah,
initiative.
correct, correct,
Yeah.
correct. Yeah.
Because as I currently understand, based on your mentioned plan so far, I believe Taylor is basically considering to move into ODL, right? Open distance
Uh, we
learning.
already we already in it. We are using Canvas.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh,
We
so
are
you're using
uh
Canvas to support ODL, but you are using
yes.
LMS for standard teaching. Is that correct?
Yeah, Moodle is for the conventions program.
Yeah, probably
Yeah,
because
yeah.
Moodle
Yes.
can't really support cloud deployment. We understand that as well.
Can just because the previous director they prefer Canvas. They don't want Moodle.
Oh, I
Yeah,
see, I
yeah.
see. Yeah,
That's
because we have
only
done a
the
lot of research as well. Moodle has
uh
weakness when it comes to supporting high concurrency. It's
yeah,
yeah.
correct, correct also. But our LDL is still in the very small scale, not a very big
Ah,
scale. Yeah.
no worries, no worries.
But
Yeah,
we
because
also moving our Moodle to cloud. The project is still
ah,
is ongoing because yeah, Taylor's is getting more students. Yeah. On-prem
Yeah,
may not
understand.
suitable to support huge
No
crowd of
problem.
students. Yeah.
No problem. I mean,
Mm.
further down the line, when you have these kind of requirements, you can always look for us because even as of now, we are talking to some universities we are actually proposing something similar, very, very similar to some of the universities here in Malaysia as well. With the ODL platform to support order management, self-paced learning, all this kind of stuff with AI. It's actually part of it's actually a package, actually. So maybe we can talk about this further down the line. No issues on that.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
maybe for now we
No
can just
problem.
start small, start with the smart classroom solutions. We can try to get your feedback. Then after that, when you do have these requirements, just
Can.
refer
Do
to
you
us,
have
talk to
those
us.
presentation that can share with us so that because I after have the after this second meetings, right, I roughly get what uLearning can provide. So I would need to like prepare a presentation stack lah, so that we can present to our boss and then see what is the next steps lah. Do you have
I see.
the yeah
Okay, so I think
you-
since in our current stage, right, in our current stage, we are looking at mainly the smart
yeah
classroom solution. We have a standard
yeah
solution deck that I think we already previously shared with you, but in any case, Keely,
that
we can
one
share with them the standard PPT slide. Yeah,
I
the one that we were looking at
don't
earlier,
have that
we can say no problem.
yeah you present to us that time, right, that one, right? Yeah, can you
Yeah,
resend to
yeah.
me that
That
one?
slide we
Yeah.
can send. No
And
problem, no
then do
problem.
you have the use cases? Because my
Uh,
tailors, right,
yeah.
the educations feel right, they are more on the use case. That means like which university is currently using these solutions. Yeah, that might be more
Uh,
helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, our standard PPT solution has two slides that explains about success cases. It's not very detailed, but it's actually explaining a few items. So one of the slides is actually explaining where our solution can handle, different scales of project as well. Then in general, right, our smart classroom solution has been implemented, but not so much in terms of universities in Malaysia. We are still
Oh,
working on a few projects. Yeah,
overseas
yeah,
university
we
is
do.
okay as well. Yeah.
Then in
Do
that
you have
case,
then
Kaylin,
just provide
please send them
two
the
or
video,
three?
the smart classroom solution video. Yeah. In that case, I think it's a very good chance for us to actually send you an additional video.
Yeah.
The video is actually a very short one. I think it's like 5 minutes or so, but it's
Yeah.
based on an actual scenario. We are actually recorded our full smart classroom solution that has been implemented in China. So it's actually based on a school that has worked together with us for 8 years. Counting this year
Okay.
is actually, I think, 9 years. So they started off with just the learning management system with us because we started off with just the learning management system. Then when we introduced the smart classroom solution, they implemented for a lot of different classrooms. Then now once we have our AI, DeepSeek, and all these different stuff, they also upgraded. So they have been working very closely together with us for 8 years. So
Okay.
we can
Okay.
share that video with you so that you can actually have a
Yeah.
look at
Yeah.
it as well.
Yeah. That
Yeah.
will be great. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. No problem.
Okay.
Any other
Thank
requests?
you. Yeah. No, for now.
All right, great. Let's keep our communications online through email. If you require so, we can also provide you with our, contact numbers. That way we can have a WhatsApp group. So we
Your
can,
company is at Singapore, right?
no, we are in Malaysia.
No.
We are
Oh, you're
currently
in
in KL
Malaysia.
actually.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
somewhere down the line, if you require us to be on site to assist you with demonstrations, or you intend to actually, have some maybe an on-site demonstration or an on-site activity where you want us to participate, just let us know. We can try to arrange accordingly.
Oh, okay. I thought you guys are at Singapore. Okay.
Nah, we are actually in Malaysia. So we are
Oh,
actually
okay.
in KL, and our office as of now is actually, I think, 10 minutes to 15 minutes walk away from KLCC. Yeah.
Oh,
So it's
okay.
actually
Okay.
pretty
That will
close.
be great
Yeah.
lah. Yeah, in
But
Malaysia.
if
Yeah.
you're talking about Taylor Lakeside campus, personally, I live there. I don't live in
Oh,
Taylor's Lakeside campus, but I live very close to that. I live in the bridge that connects, the one that goes up and goes over the highway. Yeah. So
yeah, yeah.
I'm basically staying in South Key. Yeah, area
I
very close to
see. I
South Key.
see. Every
Yeah,
time you turn,
as
like
of now.
we can see the condo there lah.
Yeah, every day I go home,
Okay.
I get to see the entrance of Taylor's Lakeside campus.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
So yeah,
okay.
sometime down the line, right, in the future, if you require us to support in this particular manner, just let us know. We'll be more than happy.
Okay, no problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Have a great
Okay.
day. Bye bye.
Yeah, same to you. Bye.
Same to you. Bye bye. Thank you, Mr.
Bye.
Faiz as well. Thank you.